But what if I told you that this intelligence maybe isn't as great as you may think, and actually led to Rick having a rather traumatizing life? The Rick which we get to see throughout the show is from Dimension C-137, so he is often known as Rick C-137, and during the series we get to see events of his past traumas which happened before the series itself even takes place. Season 3, Episode 1, titled The Rick Shank Redemption, is the first major time in the series we get some deep insights regarding these traumas. In this episode, Rick is being interrogated by the Galactic Federation, and they are doing so by speaking to him within his own subconscious mind. During this interrogation, we get to see a memory which Rick has before he made a breakthrough in portal travel technology. In this memory, while working in his garage trying to figure out portal travel, an alternate version of himself comes and speaks with him. This alternate version of Rick is known as Rick Prime. Rick Prime lets our Rick know that once he has access to portal travel technology, anything becomes possible, and that our Rick will essentially become a god with it. Upon hearing Rick Prime's explanation of what happens once getting portal travel technology, our Rick decides to pass on being handed the technology by Rick Prime, because he views himself as a different kind of Rick. And this causes Rick Prime to leave Rick's garage, while letting him know that no versions of Rick pass on getting portal technology. After Rick Prime leaves, Rick decides that he should give up on science and live a more humble life rather than becoming a god with no consequences. Then shortly after this, while going to get ice cream with his daughter Beth and his wife Diane, a portal opens up in the garage, and a bomb falls through it, which kills both Beth and Diane. And this then causes Rick to immediately begin figuring out the math required to invent portal travel. And after the audience gets to see these events of Rick's past, Rick lets the interrogator know that he fabricated this backstory. Well, if we go forward in the series to Season 5, Episode 10, titled Rick Mirai Jack, we can answer that question. In this episode, Morty gets to see a scan of Rick's brain and is made aware of the truths to his backstory. It turns out that even though Rick claimed the backstory was fabricated while being interrogated, most of it actually wasn't. Morty gets to see the events where Rick Prime talks to our Rick and then proceeds to kill his family. Then later on he decided to follow through with inventing portal travel and essentially becoming a god, just like Rick Prime predicted. And he did so, all so he could get revenge on Rick Prime. Using the portal technology which he was forced to invent because of his want for revenge, our Rick travels to multiple realities and begins killing countless Ricks, hoping that one of them is Rick Prime. He even bombs a giant gathering of Ricks who are angry over him killing alternate versions of them across multiple realities. And doing so makes tons of other Ricks submit to him out of fear. And realizing the godlike power of Rick C-137, they decide to construct a citadel with him, where Ricks and Mortys are able to reside, hang out, and get along with one another. Although Rick C-137 doesn't really seem to care for the citadel and only cares about his mission for revenge, which leads him to eventually find Rick Prime's original dimension, so he then purposefully crashes into Prime's garage. And it turns out Rick Prime abandoned his family.
Imagine going anywhere anytime with nobody able to stop you. Sounds lonely. Lonely? Dude, you have yourself, your infinite selves. It's a non-stop party where all the guests are the only person we like.
Because Rick C-137 can assume that Rick Prime will never come back to his original family, he decides to take his place, living with an adult version of Beth and her family. They just think that Rick Prime finally came back after a long time, but in reality, it's just an alternate version of him from another dimension who wanted to fill the hole of loneliness in his life that was caused by the murder of his wife and daughter.